Hello and welcome to Live Coding Happy Hour, the show where anything can happen. We generally have a goal. This is not a well-polished demo. We're here to show you something on the ServiceNow platform that gets us in the general direction, and you get to see how the sausage is made, how we learn and talk, the discussions that are happening, all that good stuff that goes through the brain of a developer. And between the four of us, we just about make up for that one developer. Let's go around and do some introductions, starting with this gentleman to my left.
Hey everybody, my name is Brad Tilton. I am a senior developer advocate with a developer program here at ServiceNow. I've been developing on the platform for a while, and I am excited to continue last week's show and do some more UI builder stuff.
Howdy.
Down there.
Hi everyone, I'm Earl GK. I am a developer advocate with ServiceNow. Been on the platform for about 4 years now, I think almost 5, and mostly with the higher education sector before I joined ServiceNow.
And I'm Chris Johnson. I am a senior manager of design for the UI Builder team. I'm located here in Wisconsin, and I've been at ServiceNow for just about 3 years.
And my name is Chuck Tomasi, senior developer advocate at ServiceNow. Been with the company since mid-2010, was a customer for a couple of years before that, and have a long history in computers, which we won't get into here. Next on the agenda, we have an agenda for this well-oiled machine. We're going to go around and introduce what we are drinking, because this is Live Coding Happy Hour. So same order, Mr. Brad.
I have a Delirium Noel. It's a Belgian beer that I had never heard of, and I saw it and it looked kind of cool, so that's what we're drinking today.
Have you had deliriums before?
No.
Check the ABV on that.
It's 10. I checked it.
Whoa, nice.
And there's a reason there's a pink elephant on the label.
Brad is keeping to tradition with his high ABVs.
This is what happens when you drink and code and go on camera.
You're driving again too. This is going to be great. Okay. I have a Modern Times Cosmic Rays. So they say hazy tropical IPA.
Nice.
So I went out today and I tried to find a San Diego beer in Wisconsin, and I was unsuccessful.
Oh.
So I am drinking a Wisconsin beer in Wisconsin, and I'm drinking the New Glarus Gyrator with that funny fish on the label. It's quite delicious.
New Glarus has good stuff.
No.
I'm not knocking them. I'd get a spotted cow any day.
That's right. Only in Wisconsin.
I'm surprised you couldn't find like a green flash or something.
Yeah, I was frustrated, but it is what it is. It is what it is.
All right. And I am going, since I'm not in my region again this week. Well, I think I was. I had 4 peaks last week. I've got a Full Sail from Oregon. This is their amber. So had it in the fridge. I forgot why, but now this is the second to last, the penultimate Full Sail of the 6-pack. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, Mr. Brad, over to you. What's our top?
My beer exploded all over my desk when I opened it just now. So that's all right. Okay, today we are going to continue what we started last week and hopefully get into a few different things as well. We ran into some issues last week. We'll kind of talk about a few of those and why we ran into them.
We're cheating this week. We brought an expert in.
That's right.
We can do that on Live Code.
Why?
My ears were burning last week.
He's the one who's yelling at the screen going, "It's right there."
All right. So what we're doing is we've got this Artifact Manager app that we've talked about and used on the show before. And it's an app that we use to kind of manage all of our content and planning process. And we would like to be able to plan it a little better or interact with it a little better. So we've created a workspace experience for it. We ran into some issues last week where our grid wasn't showing up correctly, and I replicated. I rebuilt the app in a new instance, a simple version of it, and everything worked fine. So the instance stack we were using has some little idiosyncrasies, and it's been around a long time. So I think there were some issues with that. So this is basically where we got to last week. This is a list of artifacts, and we're currently, where are we? This one. Is this right? What's today? The 18th? Yeah.
Yes.
So this is today's show in Artifact Manager. So again, this is where we're kind of managing our blog posts, live streams, podcast, and all of those things. So last week, what we did was we used the new repeater component, and we built out this grid based on the repeater component. I don't know why my stuff's not showing up here. That's weird. Anyway, we did that. There we go. I think my all my data had to load into the repeater component. So we've got, we're pulling from my data resource. We're pulling the title, the plan publish date, the state, and then if it has a short URL, we're displaying that here. And if it doesn't, we want to show a button that says create short URL. And then in today's show, what I want to do is I want to make that button actually work and actually create a short URL for it and update the list. So that's,
I like when a goal is I want this thing to work.
Yeah. Well, it works. So right now it's just informational. We want to make it interactive, right?
I smell a modal coming up.
Yeah, I think we're going to use a modal is probably what we'll do there. And just to show a little bit more about what we're doing here, I've got a data resource that's a transform data resource that I built just so that I could kind of give the data how I wanted to. It's pulling from a couple of different tables and doing a query on the back end. So again, our data resource is just, it's an array of objects, and each object represents an artifact. And so what we're doing with the visibility on these fields is we're saying, if the short URL is empty, show me the button. And if there is something in it, we want to see that short URL. So we've got a little script here, and that's how we're showing that. Before we get into what we're doing today, we had one of the things we had talked about last week was, can we do things like style the odd number rows differently from the even number rows? We didn't really know that. And that was one of the things we were going to ask Chris about. And we talked about it a little bit before the show. And then we're like, wait, we should talk about this on the show so everybody knows what's going on there.
Yeah.
But yeah, Chris, give us some background on that.
Well, with CSS, there's a really easy way to do this normally, and that's using a pseudo selector that allows you to target, the first item in a list, or the last item in a list, or every other item in a list, and those sorts of things. And that's a capability that's built right into CSS if you're not embedding your CSS as inline styles. And the styles that we're doing in UI Builder are actually injected directly into the tag. They're inline styles, and thus pseudo selectors like :hover, :active, and these other things are not available to use. Now, I think there is potentially other ways to achieve this effect by maybe styling the grid directly and trying to do sort of like having the grid generate every other row with a different styling. I would need to play around with that a little bit more, but the easiest kind of low-hanging fruit way to do it is not something that's at our disposal because we're using the inline styles.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So sorry.
No problem. One thing I did want to call out also is one of the questions we had when we were looking at, so last week, because we had some instance issues, instead of showing a grid, everything just kind of showed vertically. And we had thought, well, maybe this was because we had these stylized text components and we had divs or headers or something like that. And I did want to show that this week, like this is an H3 and it does work in the grid. So I don't believe like your stylized text is going to affect what you do in the grid. So you could use an H1, you could use a paragraph, whatever tag you want to use is still going to show up horizontally in the grid there.
So
Yeah,
are we chalking that up to old instance bug?
We are chalking that up to old instance bug. I replicated everything in this instance and it works fine. So this is my PDI, so it's not like it's some crazy instance. But
yeah, I was pretty concerned after watching last week's episode. So
yeah, so no more using that instance stack. Maybe we'll zboot that at some point.
there was a comment in there. Would be nice to build the alternating styling right into the repeater component, and I think that's a great point. Thanks for the feedback. That's a great feature suggestion.
Yeah, now's a good time to get those feature suggestions in.
Yeah, that's right. You want give some feedback right now. So Chris, one of the things you were saying, so I noticed that I can't really do a lot of styling from the repeater itself. So I put a container inside the repeater, and you were saying that you can turn on styling and do some interesting things in the repeater component.
Yeah, so we have a bunch of different use cases for different teams, and when we built the repeater component, we tried to make sure that all those different use cases would work. And we found that in some cases, you wanted the repeater component to sort of be an invisible component when you went to the runtime, to not inject anything into the DOM. And in other cases, treating the repeater component in the same way as a container was actually a really handy thing to do. You didn't need another element. It just kind of was more logically laid out. And so we actually enable a toggle so you can move between the world of, invisible runtime repeater and a repeater that has styling properties that you can add to it. And so in the case, if that grid is a fairly simple grid, you could probably achieve the same effects here depending on how you're making it work by just setting the styles and doing it directly that way. So
do I get any like extra functionality from doing in the repeater, or it's just a way to make it simpler because I don't need a container inside?
Yeah, so it's really more about the specific needs of your page and kind of how you're making things work. So how you're using repeaters here, you're kind of creating sort of like a table. But there are other use cases for repeaters where you might be repeating over pieces of data in like a cell. And so you want the repeater not to have any kind of layout associated with it at all. And in other cases, you want it to have that layout. And so we give you the ability to toggle between them and just enable, disable that state and kind of play around with it. We wanted to give you the flexibility to make that decision based on what you needed to do.
Nice. A question that just came up in my mind. Can I nest repeaters? Do you know?
You absolutely can.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So in that case, I'm just sort of making up an example off the top of my head, but maybe you have a set of icons or something like that you want to repeat over, based on the data that you've got, or avatars or something like that, and you're putting those inside of like a card. You could totally do that. With the repeater component. Nested repeaters is supported.
Excellent.
All right. Well, I think what we want to do is ultimately, I want to be on this page and I want to say create short URL, and I want to create a short URL record and then update my I guess I don't need to update my artifact manager record, and then I need to refresh the list. So I think I want a modal. Let's do that. And I think I'm going to want a custom modal here. Ooh, that's right. So with the modal, the custom modal, it gives you some things by default. So let's give it a header.
We're getting UIs within UIs.
Right. I don't think this has changed much. It looks like the styling may have changed a little bit, but I don't think the functionality changed.
Yeah, and I think that there's an issue sometimes with modals where sometimes things don't display unless you save and refresh, and so you're not seeing the stylized text right now, but if you save it, it should be there.
That makes sense. What do we want to call this? Let's say create short. Well, we're calling it URL. All right, and then here, I think we're going to need a full URL. So we're going to need an input. We input URL. I don't think I've used this component before. Input URL. Let's call it
Target.
Target. I like that. We can pre-populate this, but we'll worry about that in a little bit. Target URL. I don't think we need any of this.
Required.
We can do required, but I believe all this does is adds a little icon to it. It doesn't actually do form controls.
Doesn't enforce it. Okay.
Yeah, you have to do that yourself. And then we need. Wait, did I put that on the bottom? Yeah,
You did.
No, it's all right. Let's. I know I could move it, but we're just going to do this instead.
You want a slug?
Yes. Oh no. Oh,
It's still there.
Just
It's
collapsed.
still there.
It's still there.
Yeah.
And probably a description would be handy too, because that's also.
Oh, that is a field. Yeah.
I think those are the three minimums.
No. Wow. It doesn't like it if you try to put the label instead of the component type. All right, so let's go ahead and save. There we go.
Uno mas.
Oh, that's right. Oh, so this is different, huh? So if your component has slots, which I
Yeah.
guess, are they still slots?
Yeah. So with the move to layout 3, and I know you guys talked about this a little bit on a couple of different episodes, but in many cases, the need to think about slots is gone, but you still can create what we call named slots inside of your component, and those are sort of areas that you can add content into. And so the input comes with 2, end and start, and it always came with 2, and we always allowed you to add content into it, but we've now kind of reflected those previously invisible things in the UI on the stage, so that it's easier to understand that, oh, there's something here that you can put stuff into. And if you don't put anything in there, it'll just not show up, but you could add, for example, an icon into your input there or something else to kind of communicate better the state of what was going on.
I like that. Let's add an icon while we're here.
An icon of a slug.
You could do like a URL icon or something.
Yeah. I do like the slug idea.
I don't know that we have a slug icon in our repository,
sure we
but
don't.
that might be a good request for our
I'm
icon
going to call
designers.
Font Awesome today.
I think it's link, if I
Link.
remember
If
correctly.
it's URL, we could just use a picture of me.
Sure, let's do that. All right. And then let's stick a button here. And what's the right thing to call this? Create, add,
Sure.
submit.
Make it so.
Let's do that. Everybody likes exclamation points and
That's right. It's very important for your UI to have a lot of exclamation points.
You got to get your description in there too.
All right. We might as well put the description in. So I'm going to, let's put it at the end, I guess.
Long links and short links by themselves are
No, let's put it here.
dangerous.
I almost typed description.
I think you want an input
You're right.
field.
Yeah, I've been doing too many stylized texts.
Do you want a text area or an input?
I think we want a text area.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be better.
Do you have a max number of characters that field supports?
I mean, I'm sure it's like 4,000.
Okay.
I can tell you. No, I don't think it exceeds 255 because it's a single line.
Oh, is it a single line? All right, let's go.
I'm gonna double check real quick.
I don't know what it is in this instance because we'll say 255. All right. So let's make sure we can pop our modal up, and
The description field is in fact. Speaking of modals, come on. Show description. 1,000. It is a big text.
all right. So let's refresh and make sure that our modal pops up and see if we like the way that it looks. All right. That looks good. This button shouldn't do anything.
It's a good looking modal.
It is. All right. And the nice thing is if it already has a short link, the button's not there, so we can't create one. We don't need to worry about that data validation. We should really, I guess, we won't worry about it. Let's keep this simple. All right, so in our modal, what we want to do is, I guess, this gets so complicated, but how do we do that? I think we need some client state parameters to hold these values, and then we'll need a script when we say make it so.
That grabs the client state and pushes it into the database?
Yes. I really want to pull, right? So what we have is a lot of our artifacts have draft URLs. And so I think we want to pull the draft URL if it has one, and then if it doesn't have one.
Ooh, that's a good idea.
So I think we'll need a client state parameter to map that draft URL from, yeah. I don't like it when there we go. Oh, fine. To grab our draft URL, and then we'll want to populate it when we hit the button, I think. So basically, when we hit the button, I think we'll need to write the URL for this specific item in the repeater to that client state parameter, and then show it in the modal, because I think once the modal pops up, we won't be able to access the specific spot in the repeater where we were. Does that make sense?
I think so. I think you'll have to pass that in. Yeah, that makes sense.
Just want to make sure we're all following and I explained that okay. All right, so let's add a new event handler, and we're going to update a client state parameter, which is draft URL, and I want it to be, so this is one of the things that came up on the show. Oh, it's not doing it here. Item value draft URL. So I noticed when I was doing binding that I could, like for example, I can click on item here, but it doesn't give me the little @ symbol in front. So it doesn't work until I.
Yeah, I noticed that too. That's annoying.
The little thing that came up there. All right, so we're writing that, and then I think in the modal we want to show that in the input URL. So the value, I want to bind the value to that parameter. Draft URL. All right, so let's see if that worked. Let's figure out this one, Flow Designer with BIM. So Flow Designer with BIM, if I hit this,
Ooh,
all right.
That looks like the right one.
It worked.
Nice.
And you can edit that should you need to?
I believe so.
Yeah, so that's kind of
There
an
it is.
attribute of that component. The reason to use the URL input type instead of just the regular old input type is that it gives you kind of that edit, view, click behavior automatically.
That's nice, because then if I wanted to validate that that's a URL, which it won't be right now because that show is not published yet. But Sam says take a drink. I actually did take a drink with that. We're good. All right. And then, so it might actually have a slug as well. But I'm not. Oh, yeah, we are grabbing slug. There we go. Do any of them actually have the ones that, yeah, I don't.
You should.
think-
You have 2 of them that had a short link already. So
Yeah,
do
those
have
I guess would hopefully have slugs. Yeah, this one has a
yeah,
slug.
there's one.
but
Yeah,
no.
breakpoint.
All right. So the slug is technically used for the blog, and I think that it could actually be different. So I'm not gonna use that there. All right. So we made that happen. Now what we need to do is, if somebody's filling out the modal, we need to set the client state parameter once they input something. So I think we want value set, and then we're going to update. So this one, we're going to update that existing draft URL. The new value is going to be the payload of the event. That's not right. It's the right, oh, it's just payload. That value. Right, and then we're going to need a couple of client state parameters for the description and the slug, and then we're also going to need one for the sysid. So let's go ahead and make all of those right now. Let's go description. And if I was really worried about this, I would make better names. There could be other things on the page, but
There was a suggestion earlier in the chat too around perhaps making this a big old blob of JSON instead of individual properties, which
that's
is
a good
possible
idea.
too. The nice thing about doing it this way though is that you don't have to dot walk into the JSON.
Yeah, because we're using this draft URL a couple of different ways. Yeah, the JSON would be good too. I already created all of these, so we're going to do this. But whoever said the JSON idea, I like that. All right, so we'll do this with a description.
And one thing to also note here too is that these components have invalid events, and so if you wanted to do the kind of error handling or disable your make it so button until valid input had been put in, you could wire up to those events as well and do it that way.
Nice. Maybe if we're so good that we finish early, maybe we can go back and do some data validation. Description, that was on the description. Yeah. And then we will go slug. Set an event there. I have one extra event on this one. So it was, what's the difference between input?
I don't know for a fact, but that to me potentially could mean you could do things on like keystroke. So in every change of the input, you could get an event that you could wire up things to. I don't know for a fact that that's the case, but that seems like what it could be.
Yeah, and there's key down too. Yeah, so I guess if you were doing like a autocomplete type thing, that would be what you use.
Yeah.
All right, and then we want to, so we'll wait on that button. And so for the short URL, we also want to update the client state parameter and set the sysid. This is going to be item. And just a quick review, item is basically the item in the array inside of the repeater where you are, and value. And so you can continue to dot walk. One of the things I noticed about this is if your JSON blob is more complex than this level, I don't think you get autocomplete past this level, or I didn't when I was messing with it. So like if I had, if sysid was a property, I think I'm done with auto-completing at that point, but you can still access those variables, or those properties.
I believe the autocomplete in that case is leveraging the schema. And so if it doesn't have a schema to look at, it doesn't know how to autocomplete against it.
That makes sense.
So you could provide that schema, right?
You can in certain cases. I think in this example, because you're kind of building those client state parameters and JSON on the fly, I don't know that we support building a JSON schema for the client state JSON.
All right, so let's create a new client script here, and this is going to be create short URL, and we want to say, what is this? This is a short URL query. Should I write this or just copy it? Let's
write it only using your index fingers.
Thanks. Let's go back and see. I don't think I have a good. I don't remember what I call the. Yeah. What do we call those fields? Let's go.
Oh, look at that sexy interface.
I am going to look at my short URL table and see what my field names are. All right, we have redirection URL, which is the new one. Let's see.
Yeah, that was the target.
Yeah, so that's the one we don't need. We want URL slug, and I guess label is what we're using for a description.
Oh, right. It's going to create the redirection URL.
Yeah, so it won't actually do it here, but it's fine because this is my my skeleton app that I created to do the show. All right, so our fields are URL, slug, and label. So URL equals.
No, it wasn't label. I thought it was description.
Well,
label
in this instance, it's label.
Ah, okay.
I think we call this description. What did we call this? Oh yeah, I can just click in draft URL. And then label URL slug. All right, so first thing we're going to do is make sure we're getting all this stuff.
Glad I'm not the only one who uses console.log to debug my JavaScript.
All the time.
All the time.
Let's go. This is not the right way to access client state parameters. But the names are all right, at least. API.state. This is what we want here. And then I didn't have to remember them.
You got Sampath like a little excited there.
I know. Sorry. But thank you for the assist there. Query. There we go. All right, so let's see if this logs out correctly. So on button click, we will call this script. So what do we think the chances are that this works?
100%.
Very good. 100%.
A lot of optimists on this call today.
I know. All right, so let's use the one that has the, there we go. Here is something. Slug is going to be
If it doesn't work, I will finish my drink and refill.
Boy.
Query URL.
Label.
Slug. Are we going to have to do some escaping? We shall see.
Yeah,
Probably
maybe.
should.
So this is what we expected. So that's good. So we're getting there. It's sort of working. All right. And then we want to go. This is going to be API.state.sysid. And then, I need to create we need to create data resource. So I'm going to save. And does it create? Yeah. All right, so we've got our create record data resource, and I never remember what exactly it needs. So let's talk amongst yourselves while I go copy some code from somewhere else.
This is where Earl brings back our faces.
Do what?
This is where Earl puts our faces back on the screen.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Never mind the man behind the curtain.
Actually, let's let's find it somewhere.
Earl can put up some chat comments or something.
Yeah.
Looks like Andrew's got something good to drink.
Ooh, Kentucky Bourbon Barrel Special. I'm supposed to be doing something else. I'm not going to read the chat.
Squirrel.
Barrel aged something. I caught my eye.
So we had a question earlier, Chris. Someone asked, we had a problem with putting in formulas inside of the field where it was like the if statement, then it wanted a expression, and then it returns true, and then what to return if it's true, what to return if it's false, in the same parameters.
Yeah.
And we couldn't. Whenever we try to do an expression, it wasn't working. So we were wondering if you knew what is the exact syntax that it's expecting out of that one. I think that question came from Sam.
You know, I end up having to go to the developer docs when I'm writing expressions as well. So I usually start there with the proper syntax and play around with it until I can get it to work.
Yeah,
I don't remember the specifics from last week's episodes to know if we could like take a look back and like debug the problem. I'm assuming it was a syntax error of some kind.
Well, so Sam has what what we tried to do last week, and it wasn't working. Where we were trying to return, you'll see like in that first parameter, we were hoping it would show up as true, but it just wasn't accepting it. It wouldn't even validate it as a proper parameter because it would give the red underline underneath the if statement.
Well, yeah, I don't think expressions worked in the first parameter was the problem. So if it was a thing that
Was returning a true or false from
that
that
worked.
parameter or something, and probably that's the only way to do it, huh? I guess we could do the expression somewhere else and then return that here. That would be the way to solve it.
Yeah, it's possible that in some cases what you want to do is more complicated than what the expression engine can handle, and so then in that case you just revert to the client script sort of environment and do it that way. So yeah, I'd have to go back and look to know exactly to try and troubleshoot it, but my gut says that it's along those lines where it wasn't returning the right value, and so the script was going, I don't know what to do with this, and then it was just clearing it out.
One of those things where we have the shorthand to simplify some simpler things, but if it's anything more complex, we probably shouldn't be doing it here anyways.
Yeah, I think that's a good rule of thumb.
All right, so I figured out what else I want to do here. So I also want to update a record. Wait, update. Is that not called update record? It is called update record.
What are you updating?
We're going to update the artifact with the target URL.
It already has the target URL.
Not necessarily, only if it had the target URL already.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So we're just going to force the update anyway. Let's call it update record.
I think we're going to do another create record that goes into the related list, but I don't know if you have that in your data model on this instance.
I don't think I have any related lists on this instance.
Okay.
All right, so this is what we're going to do.
Copy pasta.
This one takes SysID parameter as well. We have that here. Except we want a different query for that one. Artifact. Wait, that should be artifact ID. So artifact query is just going to be. I stopped talking, so so we also have an artifact table, and we also want to update this draft URL on the artifact table. So that's draft _URL. So
do you want to use the short URL for that then? Or are you going to use the original draft URL?
We actually need the long URL because I think that some of our data pulling uses that URL.
Okay.
Equals draft URL. Why are these red? Do I have a?
You got a missing quote or something. Something's mismatched. Check at the end of the draft URL on the end of line 12.
Yep. Good call.
Thank you, syntax highlighting.
That's right. And then we need to change that table name.
I haven't had any problems with the last 35 years in VI.
Artifact short URL. All right. So we're going to do this, and then we want to update record, create record. This all looks good to me. And then one other thing that I want to do is when our update record updates successfully, I want to refresh this artifacts and short URLs. I need to scroll down. There we go. And so then our list should update. All right, so let's, do we have a preview open for short URLs? Yeah, so this, we should be able to refresh it. Let's add on created parameter. All right, we saved.
I think this is going to work.
I believe.
All right, so create short URL. Let's just give it something. And then our slug will just be Google.
Call it Bing.
I'd Bing that.
Oh, the other thing we need to do is make the button close the modal.
Yes, you
not
did
do
forget that.
All
Nah.
right. So I did that.
Did you already say make it so?
I did hit the button.
Refresh.
Yeah, it should have refreshed the list for us already, but let's see. So that didn't work. Or maybe it did. Let's see.
Everyone drink.
Oh, it did work.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
so we shouldn't get a redirection URL yet.
No, because we didn't run the flow to actually go and
Yeah.
create it.
This is just the front end of it.
Yep.
All right, so it did work. And if I refresh, it was this one. So I don't think we updated the artifact record. Let's see. So which record was that?
One of the more
TriFlow
recent
and
ones.
error handling. Let's go. I don't have all of the data in here. Just, do I not have title in this list? That's wonderful. All right, let's title, and then the URLs are there. Where is, here it is. So it did not update the URL. So that's why that didn't work. So let's go back and look and see why it didn't update the URL. So that's this one. It's because sysid is not the name of this parameter or this property. It's record ID.
Of course.
And then, we had another good idea that was just auto close the modal after we successfully execute the, actually, I think we could probably close the modal before.
Yeah, this is one of those pesky error handling questions.
I know.
Close the
what
modal.
happens if it doesn't work?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it on success here.
On failure, can you make it go to bing.com?
I think we could. It's actually a little more. What happened to our? Oh, we put it on the update. That's right. There is a redirect link to destination. Oh yeah, we could do that.
I'm team close the modal.
Yeah, we're gonna close. Where's open or close modal dialog? There we go. And by default, it closes. So
Open another modal on error.
all right, let's try. This one already has a URL. This will just create another one, but sure. We did. Did we make this? Yeah, it is. So let's. This time we'll go.
.com and then Google.
And then we'll call it Google.
Here, let me Google that for you. Click.
Is there a let me Bing that for you yet?
Don't know.
Oh, something
No,
went
it does
wrong
not.
again.
It does not exist.
All right, let's see.
I like Anders' suggestion. Just open another modal that says, "Are you sure you want to close the first modal?"
It did work that time. Bing.com. So we got that updated.
Yep.
And then,
Take a drink.
oh, it's probably my data resource is messed up, which is fine. I think my data resource is maybe looking at the other URL field.
Good job though. You got it working, man.
Here, let's do this. Not yet.
This is so loud in my ears.
All right, so what's the other one? Published URL. Let's just update them both.
I should have done this when you said Bing.
Bing.
Bada bing.
Bingo bango.
We're going for the throat.
Publish URL. Publish URL.
That's right.
No, in the API. Oh,
In the
No,
API,
it's the same URL though. We're just
Yeah, he
updating
wants
it.
the same URL.
Yeah, you're right.
All right, so this is our last try here. All right, let's pick a random one. I don't think this one has a short URL. So what's here?
Ask Jeeves. Yeah, you.
Isn't it just
Alta
ask.com
Vista?
now?
Yahoo. We got a few more to go.
It needs a .com, I think.
Alta Vista.
It looks like it'll accept it. I mean, it's not going to work either way.
Yeah, I was around when Alta Vista was a thing.
All right. That was what's new in UI Builder. Oh, it did refresh. Right before, no, that wasn't the right one. Where this one. All right. Well, I think we'll just have to be okay with some success here. What was that? Was what's new in UI Builder? Oh, that didn't work at all.
Check the console. Did you get a log?
Oh yeah, it worked. Something's wrong with my data resource. That's fine.
Blame it on the data resource.
But we are out of time.
Cheers. Sweet. Good job, Brad.
All right.
Did we achieve our goal?
I think we did.
Yeah, we achieved like two
It-
or two
it
and a half
mostly
goals,
worked.
right?
If the goal was to drink beer, then we achieved our goal.
Oh, I'm close.
Yeah, so we had a question. We needed to refresh the data broker. I believe we did do that. So the success event on that update record refreshed the original data broker or data resource, and then it also closed the modal.
Were there anything that we missed that we did last week, Chris, that you would have hoped to be able to talk about this week? if it came up again?
No, I mean the layout stuff was the thing that was concerning me, and I'm glad that we got that resolved by cleaning up the instance. So that was the big thing.
Any cool thing that you want to point out that we never even approached, like that for anybody that's interested in new stuff in UI Builder?
Well, I mean, you all have talked about all the new stuff with the style panel. I think that is particularly exciting and definitely streamlines the creation of complex pages. So I'm super proud of the team and what that enables in this release. I can tell us a little story if you guys would like.
Yeah.
So I think this is the 4th time I've been on Live Coding Happy Hour. And I don't remember if it was the Quebec release or the Rome release where we tried to create an alert that popped up when the Modal did something successfully. And we couldn't figure out how to write the JSON.
Yes.
Well, that is the reason why we created the JSON editor.
Oh, that's awesome.
That show, and the fact that I didn't know what schema was and I couldn't provide the right thing. I was like, well, this is stupid. We gotta fix this. So that's the origin story. So
That's
embarrassment of me
on
Live Coding Happy Hour resulted in a great feature in San Diego.
That is a great feature because it is, you don't even always have the schema in the reference docs. So having it show up with the properties in the JSON editor. If you don't know what we're talking about, go back and watch Creator Toolbox on Tuesday, where Ashley showed the JSON editor that's new in San Diego. But that's really cool. I like that.
Yeah,
That's a great story.
And with that, let's rate our beers.
Yeah, I had the Delirium Noel. I had about half of it, and it's pretty good. I'm going to give it a 4.5.
Is that with the quarter point success factor?
That's with the quarter point success factor. Yeah.
Earl, how about you?
I had a Cosmic Rays Modern Times. It was okay. I'm not just big of a fan of IPAs, but it was 3.75. It was fine.
So I realize that I shouldn't drink beer that doesn't have the ABV value written on the label, because this is clearly a higher ABV than I was expecting. It's good. It was like a 4.8, but I was expecting a little bit lower ABV than what I got.
It's like a restaurant that doesn't have the prices on the menu.
That's right. That's
thing.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
You turn the cameras on and Chris is in the background. Woo!
Market price.
That's right. That's right.
All right, I had the Full Sail Oregon's Original Amber, and I'm going to give this a 4 or 5 also. This is going down nice and easy. It's a good coding beer. So, any last minute announcements as Earl prompts us with the lower third?
Well, we are finishing up our next experience segment of the San Diego release season. Next week is Flow Designer Week. We've got Creator Toolbox on Tuesday. And then on Friday, we've got a special live coding happy hour with some other guests that are kind of going to come lead us in something. You may know them from the podcast Between Two Functions, but they're going to come lead us in some Flow Designer.
Whatever happened to podcast Between Two Functions?
Don't forget to check out the link at the bottom of the screen for all the rest of the schedule that we have for the rest of the San Diego content. Always keep checking back at that link. We're going to keep saying it every week. I think that's it.
Thank you, gentlemen. Everybody have a wonderful weekend. Unless, of course, you're watching this on a Monday morning. Well, have a wonderful week. Whatever time of day it is for you, we wish you all the best. Stay safe, and we will catch you again real soon. Take care.
Take care, everybody. Bye.
See you later.